welcome to this week's edition of World Today. The focus this week shifted to Lithuania's city of Vilnius for the NATO Summit, which concluded in not a grand fashion, once again exposing the fissures and divisions that exist within the military bloc. While the alliance finally decided to add Sweden after Turkey lifted its bloc, it also laid out new ambitions for itself. But it only offered long-term support for Ukraine, promising membership someday. Without a clear timeline for when Ukraine can join the military alliance. No clarity on date or time when Ukraine is literally fighting Russia, not just for herself but also for Europe and for the West as a whole. A humiliation that might have a long-standing impact on the people of Ukraine and on Zelenskyy's presidency.
NATO member states and their special guest from the Indo-Pacific region attended the two-day NATO summit in Lithuania. The leaders arrived for the meeting focused on new memberships and how to contain the Ukrainian conundrum. Although President Zelenskyyy was welcomed by NATO for the first time as an equal, he wanted full membership. But that, NATO has made clear, is impossible while Ukraine is at war.
From now on, NATO and Ukraine will meet in the Council to discuss and decide as equals. This is a significant step to move Ukraine closer to NATO. I also welcome the major new announcements of military support made by NATO allies at this summit. Allies have already provided tens of billions of dollars in military aid to help beat back Russia's invasion.
Ukraine's future is in NATO, said NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, but added that the war-torn nation will have to meet with conditions laid out before applying for full membership. A clearly frustrated Volodymyr Zelenskyyy tweeted that NATO allies were showing Ukraine disrespect by changing wordings of the joint communique without Ukraine being in the room.
And I'm really honored to welcome in our midst our dear friend Volodymyr Zelenskyyy, President of Ukraine. Welcome to you, Volodymyr. It's great to have you here.
The outburst was certainly last minute, coming less than an hour before the 31 NATO leaders were due to sign off on the final summit declaration on the topic.
You've done an enormous job. You have a lot more to do, I know, and I just think that, we're going to make sure that you get what you need. And I look forward to the day when we're having the meeting celebrating your official membership in NATO.
It turned out to be a communique that did not spell out a timeline by which Ukraine could join, nor a list of conditions it would have to meet, nor even extend an invitation to join at an unspecified future date once the war with Russia is over. But Ukraine did score aid from other countries and received military aid and assurances from all members of the G7 to continue with military and economic aid long-term, an agreement to start a training program for its pilots on Western F-16 jets with the help of 11 countries. $770 million worth of military aid package from Germany. Following similar announcements from Britain, French President Emmanuel Macron said France will start supplying long-range Scalp cruise missiles to Ukraine, a move slammed by the Kremlin.
We consider this decision to provide security assurances to Ukraine a mistake. By providing security guarantees to Ukraine, they encroach the Russian Federation's security. This is fraught with very short, medium and long-term negative consequences.
The 2008 Bucharest Conference promise has been put on hold indefinitely. At the coalition's conference in Bucharest, Romania, the allies had issued a declaration stating that both Georgia and Ukraine will become members at some point in the future.
This week our alliance must also decide how to respond to the request by Georgia and Ukraine to participate in NATO's membership action plan.
Despite this and the passage of 15 years, Georgia and Ukraine have yet to join the NATO alliance. But Sweden did make it into the NATO, becoming the 32nd member after Finland became the 31st member of the Western Alliance in April. Sweden, whose bid to join the alliance had been stalled by Turkey, which lifted its objections at the summit meet.
Elbette
The actual authority to approve Sweden's NATO accession protocols is the Turkish Grand National Assembly, which is the representative of our national will. The lawmakers will follow the process closely as we do. I believe that we will see tangible progress from Sweden on the terms we agreed on.
It's well known that Sweden, after 200 years of non-alignment, we seek common protection, but I also want all NATO allies to know that we also provide security, provide common security, and we are here for the long term. We are decisive in fighting terrorism, we're decisive in fighting organized crime, so I think Sweden has a lot to bring to the table as well.
The summit also included a greatly expanded focus on China. However, there are divisions within NATO on how to approach China. Some European partners were less keen on embracing the United States' view of China as a competitor, preferring to keep avenues for cooperation open. But China remained unimpressed.
Despite claiming to defend the rule-based international order, NATO has a history of violating international law and basic norms of international relations by meddling in the internal affairs of other nations, instigating wars, bombing diplomatic facilities, and killing innocent civilians. Some NATO members exhibit double standards and advocate for the formation of a nuclear alliance. The evidence suggests that NATO is in fact a destabilizing force.
The takeaway from the NATO summit almost seemed like fatigue has set in. Continuation of the war could spell disaster for the entire region. Most of Europe is seeking diplomatic solutions to the crisis. The UK's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace reportedly told reporters that they are not an Amazon-style delivery for weapons to Ukraine. While that has upset many, it certainly sets the tone and tenor for what Ukraine can expect in the coming days or the near future.
Huge protests rocked several cities of Israel after Prime Minister Netanyahu's hard-right coalition adopted a bill which aims to give an upper hand to the government over the judiciary. Take a look at this report.
Thousands came out onto the streets across Israel after the country's parliament, Knesset, gave its initial approval to the controversial bill which would curb powers of the Supreme Court. The protesters stopped traffic and blocked major intersections and highways. Protesters clashed with the Israeli police at the country's main international airport after they tried to block the terminal.
I'm here to protest against what the government's trying to do to turn this beautiful, amazing country, democracy, into something totally different. I'm sure people that voted for them didn't realize exactly what the government's going to do, so I'm here to protest.
This judicial overhaul faced criticism both at home and abroad. This forced Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to call for a pause in March and allow talks.
The right to demonstrate in the framework of law is sacred for every individual and every sector, and we strongly condemn any violence against demonstrators from this side or the other. This right is reserved both to the opponents of the reform and its supporters. While the government has not considered restricting this right, it has requested to receive a report on what is the enforcement policy regarding violations of the law that infringe on the basic rights of millions of citizens and which are carried out almost on a daily basis during the demonstrations.
But with two main opposition leaders, Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz, pulling out of talks, Netanyahu moved to pass the resolution. The bill was adopted in its first reading by 64 votes to 56. Earlier, Netanyahu had to dismiss cabinet member Aryeh Deri after the SC intervened on the ground of tax evasion conviction. The proposal over reforms would also give the government an upper hand in the appointment of judges. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
The Kremlin has confirmed that a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin had taken place on the 29th of June. The meeting, which possibly lasted for about 3 hours, was also attended by commanders of the Wagner unit. The meeting took place after a mutiny by Prigozhin was halted after a deal was brokered by the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the Wagner Group is completing its handover of weapons to the Russian army. The ministry also said the mercenary group had transferred more than 2,000 pieces of equipment and over 2,500 tons of ammunition. Meanwhile, Russia's top general, Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov, was shown ordering subordinates to destroy Ukrainian missile sites. This was his first appearance in public after the mutiny by the Wagner Group failed. In another footage, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was visible inspecting troops and overseeing training of newly formed units made up of contracted servicemen. This indicated that Putin has kept his two most powerful military men despite demands from Prigozhin to sack them over alleged incompetence in running military operations in Ukraine. Now, people came out in protest in South Korean capital of Seoul as the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, gave approval to Japan to release treated wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea. Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi was greeted with protest during his visit to Seoul after concerns about food safety. Here's a report.
Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Seoul on Saturday over Japan's plan to discharge treated radioactive water from its tsunami-hit Fukushima plant. The protest comes as the UN nuclear watchdog chief's visit to South Korea, which aimed at calming fears. Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, met with South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jin on Saturday. Park told Grossi that Seoul's consistent position was that contaminated water should be verified for safety and treated in a manner that complies with international law and standards. That's according to a statement from the ministry. Earlier in the week, the IAEA said that a 2-year review showed Japan's plans for the water release would have a negligible impact on the environment. South Korea's government has said it respected the IAEA's report and that its own analysis had found the release will not have any meaningful impact on its waters. Despite that, a ban on food and seafood products from the Fukushima region would remain in place.
Threads, the Meta-based app, has seen a rapid increase in its followers. Many celebrities like singers Shakira and Jennifer Lopez, basketball players including Stephen Curry, creator Pharrell Williams and talk show icon Oprah Winfrey have also joined Threads. Here is a report.
Let's do this. Welcome to Threads. That was the first post from Mark Zuckerberg as he launched his new rival to Twitter. Within hours, 10 million people had signed up. Those quick to join included celebrities like Kim Kardashian and Jennifer Lopez. Brands like HBO and Netflix also launched accounts within minutes. Threads looks pretty familiar. It's built around text posts of up to 500 characters, while users can also post pictures and videos up to 5 minutes long. It's all meant to take advantage of the chaos at Twitter since it was taken over by Elon Musk. And it has one big advantage. People can sign in with their existing username from Instagram, also owned by Meta. Since Instagram claims to have over 2 billion users, that could enable Threads to gain serious scale very quickly. It also benefits from Instagram's advertising system, meaning it could draw dollars away from its rival. Threads is available in Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store. Some new users were quick to predict Twitter's demise, but Zuckerberg advised caution. He said this was just the opening moment of the first round. But the fight is definitely on.
At least 8 persons were killed and several injured during protests in Kenya against the rise in the cost of living and the recently passed Finance Act. Opposition leader Raila Odinga urged Kenyans to take to the streets against the new tax hikes. Demonstrators threw stones and clashed with police in different Kenyan cities against the tax hike. Police fired tear gas in the capital, Nairobi, to disperse protesters and targeted Odinga's convoy. Some of the most intense clashes took place on the expressway linking Nairobi to its international airport. Protesters in the slums of Nairobi's Kibera have been angered by President William Ruto's government, which according to them have let them down and failed to fulfill their election promises. Meanwhile, the Kenyan government says that the tax hikes, which include a doubling of the fuel tax and the introduction of a levy to fund affordable housing, are needed to deal with the growing debt repayments and to fund job creation initiatives in the country. A 22-year-old transgender woman, model Ricky Valeria Cole, has created history in Netherlands by winning the crown of Miss Netherlands 2023. Despite winning big, she is trolled and is also accused of demoralizing women in her country. Have a look at this report.
2023 is Ricky!
It's the first time in the 94 years of the Dutch beauty pageant history that a transgender woman model has been crowned as the winner. The 22-year-old Ricky Valerie Cole has made history after winning Miss Netherlands title, as she becomes the first transgender woman to win Miss Netherlands. Ricky was crowned by previous winner Ona Moody and the current Miss Universe R. Bonnie Gabriel from the United States.
I felt really accepted during this project. We were like a group together. Afterwards, I won the crown. Sadly, not everyone gave me congratulations with my victory. I think it's really sad, but I still have some other contestants who were supporting me and still supporting me. That's something I focus on.
After winning the crown, Ricky is being trolled brutally on social media and is also accused of demoralizing women in her country. Her victory is now being overshadowed by online backlash.
I thought we were like really accepting so far in the Netherlands. But the hate comments show the other side of our society. I think that's hopefully a wake-up call for much people, because the reactions are half very good and the other half is like really a shame to me.
Ricky Valerie Cole will be the second transgender model to compete in Miss Universe competition, where she will represent Netherlands in El Salvador in December. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
The world today is facing freaky weather conditions because of climate change. Take a look at some of the stories from across the globe on how countries are faced with floods, with drought, with many freaky weather conditions. Here is our report in World at Glance.
Heavy rain triggered flood-like situation in multiple provinces such as Yongcheng City, Shanxi Province and Wenan City in China. Thousands of people were evacuated and employees were ordered to limit outdoor work. China has warned its citizens of more extreme weather changes caused by climate change. US faces deadly floods in northeast and heat waves in south and the west. While parts of the northeast United States like Vermont and New York are dealing with heavy rainfall and extreme flooding, the southwestern part of the US is experiencing massive heat waves that are predicted to break records. Almost 70% of Americans are experiencing temperature above 90 degrees. A volcano erupted on the Reykjavik Peninsula in southwest Iceland near the capital Reykjavik, following intense earthquake activity in the area. Lava and smoke are emanating from the side of the mountain. The Reykjavik Peninsula is a volcanic and seismic hotspot southwest of the capital Reykjavik. Wildfires broke out in Croatia on Thursday, with at least one village burned and several others threatened as temperature continued to soar in the country. And 3 aircraft struggled to contain the bushfire that is spreading rapidly due to strong southerly winds near the Adriatic town of Šibenik. Iraq is facing severe water shortage crisis, which has left crop growers and food producers such as Iraqi fish farmers facing loss of livelihood. Climate change is adding to their woes.
That's all in this edition of World Today, but before I go, I leave you with these beautiful visuals. Prime Minister Modi was guest of honor in Paris for the Bastille Day parade, but that's not all. We had our tri-services contingent marching alongside the French regiments, and they marched to Sare Jahan Se Acha, Hindustan Hamara, a poem by Sir Allama Iqbal. Goodbye and take care.